So we just finished a mine tour at Sullivan Mine in Kimberly, BC. It was super stinking informative.
And it was cool because the people that worked there actually did the tour stuff.
Yeah, and they had some retired miners. The mine has actually been shut down since 2001, but they had some of the guys that have been worked in there for their whole lives. Some older guys doing the tours. Those guys, I wish I could have recorded the tour. I don't think that I would have been allowed to, just because it's a paid tour. But it's probably one of the most informative tours that I've been on. The mine, what did they mine? Ore. It was ore. 36 different types of zinc. Zinc
and
lead. 36 different types of ore. Minerals. That's the word I was looking for. And then they showed us the compressor station, how they powered all their air, and took us into the rooms where you go into if there was issues.
Showed us how you'd like blow up the holes.
Yeah, they actually turned on this old drill, which you'll get to see, and it was kind of an air hammer type deal. And then they showed us how they'd light all their fuses, and they would do a 6-foot square, and then they would put 3 holes right in here. And those 3 deep holes were painted red, and they would actually never light a fuse in those. They said that was super important, and for that way it would crumble. Otherwise, he said they could just put a pile of holes in it, and then they were using what were they using? It was urea.
Yeah.
It was urea, and different caps, and then they had it all wired. And he said otherwise, if you didn't have these blowholes where it could crush, nothing would happen. It just go bang, 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 and nothing would happen. So it was pretty cool how they said they had to drill it, and how fast they needed to do it and get it cleaned up, because you get paid not only by the hour but how much product.
How far you go.
Yeah, how far you go.
Crew could come in and blow up.
Yeah, so he said that, because what were they saying? They're like, I forget how many. They called them cycles. They would come in. They called them cycles. They would go in. They would blow it, clean it up, and then another crew would come in, and they would blow it and then clean it up, and then however many hours they were working, it was pretty cool.
And it's kind of neat, like the guys that did the slush pit, like
they call them
job, like
and everything was muck. They don't call it rock. They don't call it ore. It's all muck. It's either muck or hot muck.
Rock,
Could be a gigantic rock. It's still muck, or a piece of sand, still muck. And then they had hot muck.
They got paid more. That's what was cool. Like the people doing the most gruesome, hard, laborious job got paid like a bonus.
Yeah.
Doing what they did.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And then. So then they talked about the canaries, because you've always heard the canaries in the coal mine. When the canaries stopped singing, they had to get the heck out of Dodge pretty quickly. Then he made a joke that all the canaries formed a union, and then they stopped doing that. So then they had this lamp. They went down with a lit flame. It was just a little flame, and it had a crazy amount of filters on the top. So it could take air in, but the flame could not get out. However, this contraption worked. So they would walk through, and then when they're carrying it, they're watching that flame. If the flame would dim right down, that's telling them that there's no oxygen, and then they needed to be obviously seriously careful about that. And then if the flame went woof, then there was methane gas in there, because the flame can't get out. But so anyway, they just walked around with this little lantern. And you got to remember, there was no lights down there like there was on our tour. They had lights, power in there, right? They just had one light on their head. That's all they could do. So and you couldn't talk. So they had bicycle horns that they would communicate with the other miners down the way. They would go wonk 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 wonk, and then they'd have light signals when they could shine their light all the way down on a wall, and then they would do a light circle. That means come to me. Bring the cars, the ore cars, so that way they could start loading them up. And then you get to see the machine when they started to load them up. It was pretty cool, kind of loud, but kind of cool at the same time. And these guys knew some of the miners down in Chile that were down there for 69 days, really messed them up, I guess, mentally. But anyways, yeah, it was just a super duper informative tour. Also, like, we just keep moving spots because we're actually on a bit of a tour here. Not the mine tour, but there was, what, 300 miles worth of track, different tracks, just track alone in the mountain. And how they would commute for these mine shafts. Where did they start? It was at the 2,500 meters. They would go like 2,000 meters in 2 minutes. He says your ears would start popping like crazy. I'm like, 2,000 meters in 2 minutes? That seems fairly little. That seems like some serious elevation climb or drop. And then they would pack all these people in there, and then it would go up. And the mine did lose 70 some people, 70 some miners, unfortunately. But he actually wrote a book, this guy. I don't remember the name of the book.
No, but
I wish I took a picture of the book.
But it has, it's a huge book of everybody's different miners.
Yeah, all the way from the U.S. down to the ones in Chile. Oh, and another thing, how they would communicate, because you got to remember, there's no way of communicating, right? I just got to look around here. Hold on. Right, and you got to remember, like, how they would communicate. It wasn't modernized back then. So what they would do is, if there was a fire, and fires did happen in the mine, one guy would call the guy who's in charge of the air. Anyway, this stinky sulfur gas, which was completely harmless apparently, whatever he called it. There's a technical name for it. They would inject that into the air supply. So I don't know how long it took. I can't remember how long it took for that stuff down there. But anyways, as soon as the miners smelt this sulfur, they instantly knew there was a problem, and then that's how they would run to their little safety.
They would build the safety zone.
Yeah, they had all these multiple levers, so all the miners would know by the smell. So it was very interesting how they would communicate. I thought that was pretty cool. I really wish that you guys could have been part of the tour. I thought about going back and asking if we could just do a YouTube personal, like a private YouTube tour. And then I was like, that would probably kind of defeat the purpose because they get paid for these tours. So I'm trying to remember when the mine opened. I thought I saw there was an 1896 or something.
Maybe it was. They started mining the actual process, like everything was ready to go in 1909.
Yeah, in 1909.
Until
Actually, you should be on this
2001.
side because my left arm's over here. So I think they started actually mining in 1909. You can Google all this, the Sullivan Mine in Kimberly, BC. But anyway, it's pretty cool. They shut the mine down in 2001 because it wasn't cost effective and became too dangerous to get the rest of the ore out. Because I asked that, is there still mineable ore in that mountain? And they said, yes, there is, but it's not cost effective for them to get it out of there. And then I asked them, how the heck did they find it back in 1896? It's not like they had computer programs that they could image through a mountain. They said, what did they do? They just drilled some holes. I don't know how they...
core sampling.
They did core sampling. I don't know how they did core sampling back in 1896. And I don't know how somebody in a big mountain was just walking along and be like, oh, I wonder if there's some iron down there. Let's just start drilling some holes. I don't know how they did that either.
And they said, like, when they brought in the big equipment into the mines.
Yeah, in the later years, they brought in like the payloaders.
As like the 200 people that would do it.
Yeah. So, but they had, how many people did they say they had in the mine at one time? 2,000? No.
No, at one time they had 2,000, and then
back in the day they had
way
up to
back.
2,000 people, I do believe, in the mine.
With technology, they could bring in.
But they brought down like 200 or something.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on those numbers, but it was a big amount. And in those 200, let's say, miners were mining the same amount as the 2,000, just with modern technology like payloaders and mine trucks and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And then that big compressor station, which I got pictures of. I threw pictures up. That was a gigantic. I think there were 6 compressors in there, compressing air for their tools, like those drills. Oh yeah. So when they were drilling with that big drill there, he mentioned that they would go through, on average, 6 bits to get through the average sidewall. But then they hit the second hardest metal in the world, right behind black diamond or something from Alaska. They called it shoot. No, that's a dog. I don't know. Shrite. There's some rock like that. He said it was kind of through like veins that they would have to drill through, and it would take them 4 times as long to drill through it, and they would go through some ridiculous number of bits. Like, don't quote me on this, but like 400 bits or something they would go through, compared to 6. And so anyway, and of course they still had to drill through, right? If they didn't drill through, they couldn't plant their explosives. I should have asked them if the explosives made any difference in that part of rock. But anyways, it was pretty cool. It's really interesting when you know nothing about mining like myself. I know zero about mining.
Yeah, they weren't trained on those drills. He said that you just came to know how to operate it, or else it operated you.
Yeah, he said it would fling you. He said you would hit the roof, like, of the mine. Of course, it's probably only about this height.
Either made your day,
or it made you.
Or miserable.
Yeah, he said they called it. There's like a little demon in this thing. He said, he said it would either be your friend that day, or it would just abuse you that day. So
you learned quickly.
And you learned quick. There was no
School of Hard Knocks.
School of Hard Knocks back then. He said this was an older guy, probably in his 70s, retired, super knowledgeable, worked his whole life in the mining industry, and a lot of it in that particular mine. And he'd say that if you couldn't pick this up quickly, you were out of there, or you were dead, one or the other. So yeah, it was pretty cool. All right, so we pretty much butchered that, I'm pretty sure, but that was the gist of it anyways. That was a
lot to retain.
Oh, it was 2 hours. It was a 2-hour tour, and it was a lot to retain. And I was still like asking questions about the fuses and what they did, and they would go a long ways back before they light the fuses. And then the fuse box was locked and only could be opened by that individual. So that way nobody else would light the fuse. And I just thought it was so interesting how those guys communicated back and forth. And he said nowadays they can go in with full respirator systems and have mics in there and talk back and forth. And obviously things have changed a lot since then. But he said the first suits that they would send them in on, because this liquid muck was basically molten steel running out of their chutes. And all their chutes were on 45-degree angles, so their rocks and stuff would run out. He said it burned a lot of people, obviously.
Their first suits were made out of...
full asbestos.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody knew that back then. Ha! So anyways, it was very interesting how everything's evolved. The safety has evolved, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so thanks. I just wanted to share a little bit of that while it was still fresh on our mind.
Now it's time for a little mini golf.
We're going mini golfing. So we're still on our bit of a tour here. Tour of these little falls. Ashtyn really likes rocks. She's pretty easygoing, pretty low-key. She's not trying to get to a big super mall or anything, although she will go, but she likes to dig in here trying to find fossils. Seriously, she just likes trying to find fossils. She's like, that's gotta be a fossil!
To a gold, what is that called?
Oh yeah, we want to do a mine for a gold mine one.
Panning for
Yeah.
gold? I would totally do that and be so happy.
Yeah.
Or if I could go and like dig for fossils.
Yeah, basically the tour that we did was, it was hard rock and ore. That's what he called it, right? Hard rock and ore mine? Something like that. Not to be confused with a coal mine or a gold mine. So we're super fascinated with this sort of thing. We really are. We're farmers, hardcore, but we're super fascinated with this sort of thing. So, as you can tell.
People think farming stuff, which it is.
It is.
But like, I'm like, how do those people do that down there?
I have no idea.
That to me just seems like...
I don't know. And like they're literally down there with a light like this. Oh, and then after they do a blast, they have this really long 12-foot steel pole about this thick, and they go and test the roof to make sure that there's no loose rocks that will fall on them. And if there is, he says you find them by sound, not by movement, which I thought was odd. It's sound. If they sound hollow or something, then you know that it's loose. So then he turns his poker around, and it's got a 45 hook on it, and he pries it out.
That's the tuneberry!
They can't have Saskatoon berries because that's got to be only a Saskatchewan thing. Okay, we've bored you guys enough. We're gonna let you go. We're just on a bit of a vacay. First vacay in about a year. We try and take one vacation a year. Adios, amigos.